Okay, now that we have the user state loading correctly, let's go ahead and start integrating it. So the first thing we're going to need is a way of fetching the user state given a username. So this creates a user state, the constructor does, but we also need to have a lookup table here. So let's go ahead and implement a state lookup map. And a lookup function. So the map is going to start out empty. It's going to be a class property. And then every time we make a new user state, we're going to add that to the map. So self.class.map. And then we want to get the key value for the state object. So self.getKey, which we haven't implemented yet. And then that's going to be equal to self. So that adds the new state object into the map where the key is the key value. And then the key value is just basically going to be the user key. So we're going to def lookup. And this is actually class method because we're going to be looking at the map. So class method lookup, and we're going to pass in the key, which is going to be the user key. And we're going to look up the key. So if key in cls.map, then we're going to return cls.map subkey. Otherwise, we're going to return null. Sorry, none. So there's a lookup method. And then next step is in this web UI where we're doing the login thing. So we have a before request function that checks to see if user is not in session, then and if the request path is not an allowed path, we redirect to the URL. But there's another case here that's possible now where user is in the session, but we haven't actually loaded the state data. And that can happen if you're logged in and the server gets restarted. You're still going to be logged in because you'll still have the session file from before the server restart, but you won't have any state information associated with it because you haven't loaded it yet. So what we're going to do is have another if statement here. So if, so we're going to go ahead and say user state is equal to user state dot lookup, and then we want the key value for the user object, which is session square bracket user dot get key. So we need user state in order to do that, and I'm going to go ahead and import user state at the top here. So that's going to be from logic.userState, import user state. And then back to our before request method. So we're going to get the user state, and then if user state is none, we're going to go ahead and make a new user state object. So that's going to be user state sub session user get key. And this is something that we've already done twice on the very first function. So what I'm going to do, just as a really minor simplification here, is I'm going to have a static method on the class that that does this for me. And I'm going to put all of these, I'm going to end up with a number of them. I'm going to put them at the top here. They're going to replace this get all playlists and get all videos, which are not going to be coming off of user state. But I'm going to add the user stuff at the top. So right after get app, there's going to be I guess I'll make it a class method. I don't think I'll actually need anything off the class, but just in case. So this is going to be get user key. And it's just going to return this thing here. And then we already know that get all playlists is going to be, first we want to do a lookup of the user state based on the user key. So user state is going to be user state.lookup. And then cls.getUserKey. And then if we have a user state, then we're going to return user state dot get all playlists. Otherwise, if we get here, then we're just going to return none. And then we're going to do the same thing with get all videos. So copy all that. So user state is user state.lookup. And then if it's none, we're going to return get all videos. Otherwise, we're going to return none. Okay. So back to the before request, I think this is everything we need. This lookup here, I need to do web UI dot get user key. And then same thing here. All right. So let's go ahead and just see where we are. I'm going to focus next on getting the user routes working in UserRoutes. So let's go ahead and open UserRoutes and start looking at those. So UserRoutes, there's basically two things. There's login and log out. So this get user, we don't actually use that for anything. That was just a demonstration. So I'm going to get rid of that. And same with set user. So this login is just displaying the form. This thing do login is really the first thing that that we need to update. So all of the input validation is exactly the same. The only difference is here. Let's see, login user is verified password. This is still the same too. So here's where we've decided that we were successful. We're going to go ahead and we're going to set the session user, and then we're going to redirect to the home page. So right here, after we set the session user, that's where we want to log in. And so I'm actually going to do web UI login, and I'm going to pass in user. And then I'm going to do that instead of setting the session user here at all. So the first thing that's going to do is go back over to web UI, and then login is going to just happen after those getter methods. So right after get all videos, let's go ahead and class method login, and it takes a user. And then the first thing it's going to do is session user equals user. And then the next thing it's going to do is just make a user session object. And I don't have to save it anywhere because it's just going to get added to the hash table. So it's actually, I'm sorry, user state, not user session. So just that much should log us in. And then let's go ahead and run it and see how it looks so far. Oh, and I'm running main. I forgot to fix my main. So let me stop this code and go to main. And I don't need this init anymore because it was just loading stuff that I'm not actually using anymore. I need the web UI run, and then I'm going to go ahead and comment these out. Okay, so let's try running it now. So it's running. So I got an error already. So on get key, I'm calling user.getKey. I haven't implemented a getKey method for my user class apparently. So let's take a look at that. I have. So stir object. So I'm actually probably running getKey on the username instead of on a user object. So let's go ahead and put a breakpoint here and see where I am when I get that. It's actually this thing right here where I set, actually, I'm calling the constructor for user state with a piece of text instead of with a user object. So let's go ahead and find out where that is. And then in threads and variables, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. All right, so I'm at the breakpoint. User is the string mark instead of a user object. And I was in the before request method here. So web UI get user key, I'm calling that with user state, but it should just be web UI.get user. So let's go ahead and add one of those up here. And that's going to return session user. And I could just do return CLS dot get key like so. Let's try it one more time. Actually, let me just rerun this here. Okay, and then I'm going to pop up the browser and just reload. So this time user is an object, which is what I expected. So let's go ahead and resume and then back to the browser. So I think I got another server error, unless that was the old one. Okay, good. So now we're up to this line of code in user state. So we're calling self.getKey. User state object has no attribute getKey, right? So I haven't implemented the getKey method for user state yet. And that's just going to be user key there. So this is just a regular getter. And it's going to return self.under user key. Actually, we just have user here, I think. Yeah, so we're passing in user. So self.under user dot get key. And the key itself should have a lower. User get key should already be lowercase, and it is. So it's the username in lowercase. So let's go ahead and try this. And reload. Okay, so here's some menus. We got that far anyway. And it says I'm logged in as me. So let's go ahead and log out. So we don't have logout implemented yet, but that's okay. So we're going to print a list of videos. So let's do logout first. If I reload, yeah, I'm getting a server error. So let's start here. So return super item get item key in Flask session. So here's where I am in web UI. I'm returning session subuser. And that's in get user. So I'm getting a key error for users. So probably what we want to do is put a breakpoint here and reload under the debugger. And then I'm just going to reload this page here. So actually, I'm trying to execute login. So I'm in my before request. I'm doing a lookup of WebUI get user key. And then get user key is going to call get user, which is going to return none. And then I'm trying to get the key on none. So let's go ahead and fix that. So this get user is going to return this thing, which could be, actually it could throw an error if there is no user key on session. So let's go ahead and say if user in session, then return that. Otherwise, we're going to return none. And then this thing here probably is get user key. We're going to say if, actually, so this thing here is this get user is going to return none, and then we're trying to call get key on that. So let's do it this way. User is cls.getUser. If user is none, return none. Otherwise, we're going to return user.getKey. Okay, so still getting an error here. None type object has no attribute getKey. So once again here we're calling user.getKey and it's returning user is none. So we're calling the constructor and we're passing in none. So we're missing a check somewhere. So let's go ahead, put a breakpoint right here and reload. Rerun under the debugger rather, and then reload. Okay, so we're in before request. So user state is none. Actually, yeah, so user state, we looked up the user key in the user state table. So let's look at the session. So the session has a, which is none. No, that's a variable in the method here. So we have this mutable mapping marker, ABC implementation. Well, the only thing that can be on there is user. So let me just cut to the chase. I'm going to say user. So session square bracket user is equal to result key error user. So there's no key in session. So it should say user not in session should have been true, and we should have returned a redirect to the login page. So let's see why that didn't happen. So user in session is false. So if user not in session, so user not in session is true. So it should have taken this path. Let's go ahead and put the breakpoint here and rerun it. Okay, so I'm at this breakpoint. I'm going to step over. So this is going to get redirected to URL4, which is what I expected. And then somehow I got here. Oh, this didn't. So I'm in login already. I'm fetching the login path, so I didn't get past the other thing. Yeah, all right. So I can get here if user is not in session, assuming that I'm already loading a valid page. So I just want to return here, just return none there, and then it will go to the next thing. So if user is not in session, I'm always going to return, but if I am on an invalid path, it's going to return the redirect, and if I'm not on an invalid path, it's just going to return. Okay, so let's go ahead and reload. Oh. I'm sorry, let me resume. All right. So yeah, I interrupted an SSL request because I sat on it, but here's my login form. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Okay, so I'm at this breakpoint. I'm going to resume here. And then I'm going to resume. Okay, so it should be logged in now. And I'm logged in as me. So let's do the log out next. So log out, and that just removes the user from the session object, which is all I need right now. But I'm going to add some stuff to clear out the user state as well. So I have to remove the user state from the hash table there. Okay, so let's do Mighty Mouse. Oh, Mighty Mouse. All right, I'll get it eventually. Okay, so I'm logged in. Well, I know that password checking works. That's good to know. And then, so login and log out seem to work. Let's go ahead and print a list of videos. So that's going to be the next thing we fix. So let me finish this log out here. So UserRoutes, and then log out. If user is in user session, if user is in session, then we're going to delete that. But before I delete it, I actually want to clear the user state out of the hash table. So that's going to be, no, I have been avoiding accessing user state directly for these routes. So the routes are in the UI layer, and so I'm sort of pushing everything through web UI so that I only have to do the interface once. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call web UI dot remove session. And that should be all I need here. So web UI, I have a get user, and I have login. So let's go ahead and actually I should call this log out. So let me do that. I'm going to call this log out. And then what I'm going to do is call my user state class dot log out, and then pass in web UI dot get user key. Right. And then this logout method on user state, I'm going to put it right after the constructor, I guess. So it's a class method. And it's going to get a user key. And if user key in cls.map, then del cls.map user key. And that should be, so that removes the reference to the state object in the hash table. And that should be the only thing that's pointing to it, so it will get garbage collected eventually. All right, so now I have login and logout. Let's go ahead and try it one more time. So I'm going to go back to here, log out, and then I'm going to log in as me. And then I'm going to log out and log in as Mighty Mouse. Okay, so login and logout works. So next up is the print routes.